So thank you. We'll wait about a minute or two, and then we'll get started with our program. Of course, we always want to be on time. All right, so I have 12:06. We are going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody for being here on this wonderful MLK celebration virtual NAACP has put together. My name is Alan Brooks, president of Merced County branch, NAACP. I would like to bring forth Pastor Moore so we can start off with a wonderful prayer. And do we have Pastor Morris on?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, let us go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this very special day. Dr. King, we know that he was a minister. And as we celebrate this time, we think about the life and his achievements, what he fought for. We think about Pharaoh in the Bible when he let the people go, but we know that this unrelenting struggle that we face, not only in our nation, but also in the state and also in the city. But Lord Jesus, we want to keep hope alive. It's a tragic thing when you lose hope, because hope is the blueprint of our faith. And we know that we've come this far by faith. We sing that song, leaning on the Lord in his holy word, and that he never failed us yet. So we want to come in prayer to be motivated to be involved in this here, because we know it's a movement that we're in. We also know that we have a message, and the message dealing with the social justice issues, health, education, and jobs. But I'd also like to say that in our prayer, that the methods that we would use are methods, as we think of John Lewis, at times you got to get in some good trouble. You got to speak truth to power. So we know, Lord, that you're faithful. And we know that the injustices have not went away. It seemed like they have went underground and went undercover, but we know that we have to fight. And you have to, as our Lord, cut things off at the root. So bless this day as Dr. King fought, not just for civil rights, but just for human rights, for people to be treated with dignity. We pray this in the name of our Father Almighty, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Morris. Beautifully said. I really appreciate that. Now we're going to move on to our first VP, Barack Carter, and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sebastian, can you put the flag up for us, please? All right, if everyone could cover their right hand over their heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. And do we have someone to sing the Black National Anthem? To get us started.
All righty. I would be the person. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with a harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun to a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Thank you, Miss Allison. I
Yes.
really appreciate it. Thanks once again, everybody, for being here. This is definitely an important time, an important day. 2020 was a hard year, and as we've seen lately, what's happening in our capital. As the president of NAACP, I just want to come forward and say, NAACP does not condone any of the actions that happened lately at the Capitol. It was definitely a infringe on the ability on our democratic process, and we won't be afraid away. We will continue to fight. We all know if those at the Capitol look like me, the outcome would have been different. We all know during the BLM movement, police showed up in riot gear and handed out rubber bullets to protect the Macy's and department stores, but allowed a mob armed with guns and weapons to storm the Capitol and overtake it. So we're in trying times, but we know that there's work that we have to be done. We focus on national, and national is a good thing to focus on, but we know that we, as far as local, can make changes in the policies and procedures that do not promote equity. We got some work to do locally, and we know that. We know that the education system has failed our children, Blacks and Browns, for over 60 years. And it's time for us, NAACP, the watchdogs of the community, to make sure that that system is changed, to make sure that that system promotes equity, to make sure that our economics promote equity, and to make sure that no one feels like their civil rights have been infringed upon. And if you do, if you feel like your civil rights have been infringed upon, if you're at work, if you're in the streets, if you're anywhere, please feel free to give us a call. That is what we do. We fight for your civil rights. Now is the time. Now is not a time to be silent. Being silent is being part of the problem. If you feel like you want to be part of the solution, please feel free to join the NAACP. Let your voice be heard, and join us as far as making a difference in Merced County. Without further ado, we are here to celebrate the wonderful Dr. Martin Luther King and all of his accomplishments. So we are going to play a speech. I've been to the mountaintop. It is Dr. King's actual last speech the day before he was assassinated. And stories say that he was tired. They called him and told him that, the church was packed with people and they were waiting on him. And he said, just so happened, and went and gave this wonderful speech. And it was his last speech that he would ever give. So Without further ado, let's listen to Dr. Martin Luther King in his last speech, I've Been to the Mountaintop.
And then thought about myself, I wondered who he was talking about. It's always good to have your closest friend and associate to say something good about you. And Ralph Abernathy is the best friend that I have in the world. I'm delighted to see each of you here tonight in spite of a storm warning. You reveal that you are determined to go on anyhow. Something is happening in Memphis, something is happening in our world. And you know, if I was standing at the beginning of time with the possibility of taking a kind of general and panoramic view of the whole of human history up to now, and the Almighty said to me, Martin Luther King, which age would you like to live in? I would take my mental flight by Egypt. And I would watch God's children in their magnificent trek from the dark dungeons of Egypt through, or rather across the Red Sea, through the wilderness on toward the Promised Land. And in spite of its magnificence, I wouldn't stop there. I would move on by Greece and take my mind to Mount Olympus. And I would see Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, Euripides, and Aristophanes assemble around the Parthenon. And I would watch them around the Parthenon as they discuss the great and eternal issues of reality, but I wouldn't stop there. I would go on even to the great heyday of the Roman Empire. And I would see developments around there through various emperors and leaders, but I wouldn't stop there. I would even come up to the day of the Renaissance and get a quick picture of all that the Renaissance did for the cultural and aesthetic life of man, but I wouldn't stop there. I would even go by the way that the man for whom I'm named had his habitat. And I would watch Martin Luther as he tacks his 95 Theses on the door at the Church of Wittenberg, but I wouldn't stop there. I would come on up even to 1863 and watch a vacillating president by the name of Abraham Lincoln finally come to the conclusion that he had to sign the Emancipation Proclamation, but I wouldn't stop there. I would even come up to the early 30s and and see a man grappling with the problems of the bankruptcy of his nation and come with an eloquent cry that we have nothing to fear but fear itself. But I wouldn't stop there. Strangely enough, I would turn to the Almighty and say, if you allow me to live just a few years in the second half of the 20th century, I will be happy. Now, that's a strange statement to make because the world is all messed up. The nation is sick. Trouble is in the land, confusion all around. That's a strange statement. But I know somehow that only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. And I see God working in this period of the 20th century in a way that men in some strange way are responding. Something is happening in our world. The masses of people are rising up, and wherever they are assembled today, whether they are in Johannesburg, South Africa, Nairobi, Kenya, Accra, Ghana, New York City, Atlanta, Georgia, Jackson, Mississippi, or Memphis, Tennessee, the cry is always the same: we want to be free. And another reason that I'm happy to live in this period is that we have been forced to a point where we are going to have to grapple with the problems that men have been trying to grapple with through history, but the demands didn't force them to do it. Survival demands that we grapple with them. Men for years now have been talking about war and peace, but now no longer can they just talk about it. It is no longer the choice between violence and non-violence in this world. It's non-violence or non-existence. That is where we are today. And also in the human rights revolution, if something isn't done and done in a hurry to bring the colored people of the world out of their long years of poverty, their long years of hurt and neglect, the whole world is doomed. Now, I'm just happy that God has allowed me to live in this period to see what is unfolding. And I'm happy that he's allowed me to be in Memphis. I can remember when Negroes were just going around, as Ralph has said, so often scratching where they didn't itch and laughing when they were not tickled. But that day is all over. We mean business now, and we are determined to gain our rightful place in God's world. And that's all this whole thing is about. We aren't engaged in any negative protests and in any negative arguments with anybody. We are saying that we are determined to be men. We are determined to be people. We are saying that we are God's children. And if we are God's children, we don't have to live like we are forced to live. Now, what does all of this mean in this great period of history? It means that we've got to stay together. We've got to stay together and maintain unity. You know,
we have to stay together. A couple of things that he said in there that holds true today, of course, but he said the neglect of the Negro dooms us all. I mean, that's the same thing that the Black Lives Matter is screaming. It's not, once again, that Black lives want to be superior. It's just Black lives want to be seen and want to matter. The same things that were exhibited back in the civil rights movement in the Martin Luther King era is the same thing that we're living today. I know everybody out here knows that we're living history. This is history. And what part will you play in history? Once again, being silent is part of the problem. We have work to do, but fortunately we have elected officials in Merced County that's willing to get with us to do the work. We have to change these systems and policies that keep us out. So once again, in order to change these policies and procedures, you need elected officials. You need the city council. You need the mayors. You need the senators. You need the assemblymen. You need the congressmen. And fortunately, we have a group of leaders that are willing to step up and make a change. Merced can be a beacon of hope. I mean, we have the right people to do it. So let's not fear anybody. Let's fight for what's right. So without further ado, we are going to move forward. We do have a message from our Congressman, Congressman Jim Costa.
Hello, I'm Congressman Jim Costa, and I'm honored with the Merced NAACP to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, as we do every year. An important time to remember and commemorate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., an American hero who made a difference. Those of us who can remember the 1960s and the civil rights era, we know it was a turbulent time in our nation's history, concurrently with the Vietnam War. But Dr. Martin Luther King was not just a leader among leaders, but he was a drum major for justice. And that is why every year we celebrate his birthday and reflect upon his long journey and the journey of America, the journey that is always hallmarked by our efforts to form a more perfect union. And we know from our history that it has been challenging because our country has not always lived up to what our Constitution clearly states, that all men and women are created equal under the eyes of our Creator. My good friend and colleague, Congressman John Lewis, who we lost last year, one of the last icons of that civil rights movement, shared with me many stories with he and Dr. Martin Luther King. I went with Congressman John Lewis twice with Faith in Politics to retrace the steps of the civil rights movement in the 1960s in Mississippi, in Alabama. For as a young man, I remember watching on television with my parents how they were brutally beat by the Alabama National Guard And we see today, notwithstanding the progress that we've made, that still much work needs to be done. We know that just in the last year. So as we celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, let us remember the sacrifices that were made by those before us to gain these so important rights to ensure that all men and women are created equal. That is the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, of Congressman John Lewis, and others who were the leaders of the civil rights movement in the 20th century. Our work continues. So therefore, let us dedicate ourselves as we remember the accomplishments of these great leaders to working together. Because when Americans come together, we can succeed and overcome almost any obstacle. As your congressman, I will continue to try to walk the walk that Dr. Martin Luther King did during his lifetime. Should we all commit ourselves to a better America, a more perfect union? God bless the United States of America. Let us celebrate and remember the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. We really appreciate the message. Now we have a message from our Senator, Naacp Merced.
Greetings. I am State Senator Ana Caballero. I represent the 12th Senate District, which includes the Salinas Valley, San Benito and Merced counties, and parts of Madera, Fresno, and Stanislaus counties. Today, we honor the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The celebration we share today reminds us of his deep commitment to the service of others and his fight for racial equality and economic justice that we are still fighting today. Dr. King embodied and lived the values of love, tolerance, courage, and humility, and captured the hopes of a nation that has as its foundation equality for all people, but struggles to achieve this even today. His leadership set the golden standard of serving others through dedication and compassion. Dr. King's leadership in nonviolent resistance also inspired and influenced other movements throughout our nation, from the women's rights movement to workers' rights and the anti-war movement. In our state, Dr. King's influence dramatically impacted the spirit and tactics of Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta and the UFW's battle for farm worker rights. I am a firm advocate and fighter for equality and justice. The injustice I saw growing up fueled my passion to want to make a difference and influence my decision to become a lawyer and work for others. From my days as a civil rights lawyer to mayor of the city of Salinas to state assemblywoman, and now as your state senator, I stand and work for justice for all. More than ever in our current political climate, it is also important to remember that Dr. King called on us to recognize our shared humanity, to recognize our interconnectedness, and to work together to create a more just society. So on this day, as we celebrate the life and legacy of such a transformative historical figure, I ask you to challenge yourself and to join a call to action. How will you use your life, your talents, and your energy to make changes in your community? What sacrifices are you willing to make? And how will you spend your days, like Dr. King, in the service of others? We can change the world. Yes, we can. Sí se puede. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Very, very inspirational and hopeful words. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Now we have a beautiful rendition, a song from Jennifer Moore's beautiful rendition of A Change is Going to Come. Let's clap it up for Jennifer Moore. Yeah.
And like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long
technology, you know, anything can happen at any moment. So, hey, that's why we call it technology. We have to battle through it. So, if we're going to actually start that over because we want to go give Miss Moore's her time. She sent it in and it's a beautiful rendition. So let's get that. Let's start that back over.
Were you able to see it?
No, we can see it this time.
You see it right now?
Yes. Let's introducing Jennifer Moore's.
Okay.
We're going to get it together. It's okay. Once again, that's why it's called technology. And you always have technical issues. So if we don't have the Jennifer Morris, we are going to move on to Joyce's Dale poem. She's done a wonderful poem called Movement of a Dream.
Were you sharing it, Virginia?
Did you want me to? Let me just, okay.
No, we're just gonna move on.
We'll come back. We'll come back to that one.
We're gonna move on to the poem and then we'll come back to that
one. We'll come back to that one.
Thank you. So once again, we have a poem by Joyce Dales called A Movement of a Dream.
My name is Joyce Dale. I am a member of the Merced Naacp, branch number 1047. What I am about to share with you, I wrote a little over 3 years ago. Of course, at that time, our program was in person, but my message didn't reach as many people as I plan to reach today with our program being virtual. I prayed and asked the Lord for guidance in what I'm about to share with you today about the movement of the dream. Martin Luther King Jr. had been preaching about dreams since 1960 when he gave a speech to the NAACP called The Negro and the American Dream. Later, he spoke about the dream of equality for the civil rights movement and student activities. He spoke of dreams as yet fulfilled he told the world, "I have a dream." This speech was a turning point for our nation. The New York Times, the Boston Globe, the Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, all consider this speech as awakening, inspiring the conscience of America. The FBI targeted King specifically as a major enemy of the United States after this speech. The speech was considered a success for the Kennedy administration. Martin Luther King was named the Man of the Year by Times Magazine in 1963. He was the youngest person to ever receive the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. In 1993, J Street here in Merced was renamed Martin Luther King Jr. Way. The Library of Congress honored the speech by adding it to the United States National Recording Registry in 2002. On August 26, 2013, thousands gathered on the Mall in Washington, D.C., where King made his historic speech to honor the 50th anniversary of the occasion. On October 11, 2015, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution published an article about the officials of Stone Mountain, Georgia, honoring Martin Luther King Jr. by considering installing a freedom bell. On April 20th, 2016, the Treasury Department announced the $5 bill will undergo a redesign prior to 2020 on the back of the bill to depict various historical events that have occurred at the Lincoln Memorial, including an image of Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech. So now, you tell me, is there still shame in our condition as a nation of justice for all? Are there still insufficient funds? Can we even afford to build a wall? What happened to the vaults of opportunity holding up our nation? When will rest and tranquility settle this shaky foundation? The threshold to the palace of justice is worn by wrongful deeds. When will this nation rise up to the true meaning of its creed? If we come together, it can happen. It can be wonderful and good. We can create that beautiful symphony of brother and sisterhood. With God, all things are possible. We pray, we work, we stand. With God, the dream keeps moving. In Jesus' holy name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Joyce, for that beautiful poem. I really appreciate it. I always love when you grace us with your. All right, so now we actually have the Mayor Matt Serrano, and he's going to do a presentation of the proclamation.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Good to see everybody else today. Happy Martin Luther King Day, everybody. All right, here's the proclamation that will be read tomorrow at the City Council meeting. Martin Luther King Day is a national day of service, the only federal holiday designated as such. So it's going to take a minute, but everybody can hear me okay, I hope. All right, whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. devoted his life to advancing equality, social justice, and opportunity for all, and challenged all Americans to participate in the never-ending work of building a more perfect union. Whereas Dr. King's teachings can continue to guide and inspire us in addressing the challenges in our community. And whereas the King Holiday and Service Act, enacted in 1994, designated the King Holiday as a national day of volunteer service and charged the Corporation for National and Community Service with leading the effort. And whereas serving on the King Holiday is an appropriate way to honor Dr. King, meet local and national needs, bring our citizens together, and strengthen our communities and nation. And whereas the King Day of Service is the only federal holiday commemorated as a national day of service and offers the opportunity for Americans to give back to their communities on the holiday and to make an ongoing commitment to service throughout the year. And whereas citizens of Merced have the opportunity to participate in events throughout the city on the King Day of Service, which is January the 18th, 2021, as well as create and implement community service projects where they identify the need. Now, therefore, I, Matthew Serrato, Mayor of the City of Merced, on behalf of the City Council, hereby proclaim the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday as a day of service in the City of Merced and call upon our citizens to pay tribute to the life and works of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. through participation in community service projects on Martin Luther King Day and throughout the year as well.
Thank you, Mayor. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Alan.
Definitely, we look forward to doing a lot of work with you. You know, we got some changes to do, but perfect person to do it with.
No, likewise. Excited to get to work with you, my friend.
Definitely. Thank you. All right. Without further ado, we're going to move forward and we're going to introduce Mrs. Allison and Mrs. Riley. And they're going to do local Black heroes. They're also going to talk about how the history of the naming of MLK Street in Merced, and also talk about what does MLK mean to them. So once again, give Mrs. Allison and Mrs. Riley a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I first want to do a Zoom disclaimer. I have 4 dogs. If a phone rings in my house, they're going to go crazy. You can hear them right now in the backyard, so I will speak as loudly and clearly as I can. But you know, this is Zoom, this is life, this is what it is, okay? So Ms. Riley and I are gonna talk about this wonderful book, if you can see it, Black Gold, which talks about Merced County. So I'm gonna turn it over to her and mute myself for a moment.
Good afternoon. Black Gold. Acknowledgements from Sarah Lim, the museum director. This book is published by the Merced County Historical Society and the Merced County Courthouse Museum as part of the Black Gold, Faith, Strength, and Determination, Shaping Our Community exhibit, which was ran from February 1st to June 17th, 2007. So the information that we will be giving you is coming from that book, Black Gold. It celebrated the legacy of the African Americans in Merced County.
Now it was Karen Albright and Ella Pritchard who came to Ms. Lynn in May of 2006 with the exhibit idea. Now she was excited and concerned because she really didn't have any access to Black history or African Americans to talk about the history. So before Karen and Ella even approached her, she knew that this exhibit was long overdue. And she said, reluctantly, I had not established any contact with any African Americans within the community. And now with Ella and Karen's assistance, she felt she had the ability to do it.
And Sarah Lynn says that we soon organized an exhibit advisory committee and held regular monthly meetings. In addition to Karen and Ella, the following individuals were members of the committee who were instrumental in making this project a successful one. Michelle Allison, Reverend Dwight Amy, Grace Booth, Denard Davis, Almetris Huddleston, Charles Huddleston, Ken Roberts, Gwendolyn Wall, and Tina Williams. The Merced County Historical Society and Courthouse Museum are indebted to their contribution and hard work for this project.
Every attempt has been made to provide an accurate record of the rich history of the African American community of Merced County. In the preparation of the exhibit and this book, museum volunteers Karen and Rick Albright teamed up with Tina Williams and some high school students to conduct oral histories, which were documented in the Great Migration chapter of this book. The history of the churches were provided by individual churches. Most biographies from legacy and leadership chapters were submitted by individuals and organizations who volunteered their time, knowledge, and memories in developing the exhibit were contributed to the histories preserved in this monograph. The committee sincerely apologizes if certain individual contributions were not acknowledged and deeply regrets any omissions to the history presented here.
And Sarah Lim is grateful to her staff, Timmy Bressler, Adria Torres, and Herb Wood. They are wonderful team players. Their hard work and talent ensured that the development of the exhibit was a smooth one. This has been a wonderful experience and great partnership with the African American community. The museum will continue to work hard to preserve the history of our great county. And that is from Sarah Lim, the museum director of the Merced County Courthouse Museum.
Now I'm going to share a poem. Now I know we have our NAACP poet laureate, Joyce Dale, but if you'll allow me, Joyce, I'm going to try to do this justice. And this is Mercedians' family names, and it is written by E. Huddleston, and it's a poem from the Adams Family Reunion album. Well, the time has rolled around once again. We want to bring up each family name. If we don't call out your people today, please don't hold us to blame. We want you to know we are glad you are here and that you are part of us. But even in the best of families, sometimes they even fuss. Now there are Adams, Alexanders, Amy's, Andersons, the Atkins too. Then the Barnes, Browns, and the Boyces and the Berkeleys were a part of this crew. Then the Bowies, Brewsters, the Claibornes, the Crumbies, the Windsors galore, the Palmers, Shannons, the Loves, the Hayes, the Jenkins, and many, many more. Then the Whitneys, Mitchells, Lewises, Gaines, the Hansons, Slaytons by the dozens, the Bryces, Bluefords, Brooks, Beasleys, and the Salaries, all of us cousins. Oh, the Joneses, Johnsons, and the Huddlestons, McClooneys, Walkers, and from way back. Then the Davies, Galloways, the Dunns, many of us started in a shack. Remember Wilkins, Pluto, Schisms, the Kings, the Marzettes, the Atwater Thames, the Graysons and the Winstons were all good folks, and the Hartfields were part of the blame. Yes, the Craigs, the James, and so many Smiths, and the Greenwoods, many left town. But the Fletchers, the Yoakleys, the Whites, and the Wiggins are still seen walking around. Well, the Morrises, Wards, and the Turners, Mays, the Pratters, Wright, Martins, Coles, the Greens, Tollifers, and the Grahams are still eating beans by the bowls. We can't forget the Hunters, the Edwards, the Blackshears were here, the Woodwards, the Woodson, the Nuts, and the Robinson, all of these we hold so dear. The Watsons and Shepherds, they go way back, the Hewitts were fast in their time. The McQuires, the Harrises, and the Halls are part of the culturing chimes. Remember the Rockamores and the Terrells and the Rodgers, the McCurrys too? Then the family of Perkins and Merrimans and the Porters, we're proud of you. Tomlinsons, Winds, Tilfords, and Moores, Woods and Thompsons, don't stop. Staples and Dales, Carradines and Todds are still reaching for the top. DeGraffis, Pollards, and Fergusons, we are all special breed. And surely this list would not be complete if we left off the family of Reeds. If we left any old timers out, please call your name out in one great big shout. So enjoy today with old and new friends. Do it with the gusto and cheer. Then if God bless and all goes well, we'll see you all again next year.
Michelle, that was my father, E. Huddleston. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Let's give it, come on, let's give a hand for all those families of Merced community.
That's awesome.
Yes, that was wonderful. And I'm sure some of you heard your names. And we go on and we look at our Black Gold, and it's letting us know about the faith of our Black churches, understanding that churches often are the foundation, and in Merced is no different. Strengthening faith. The Black Gold listed many churches at that time, and I'm just going to share with you names of some of those churches you'll remember, and some of the pastors that began those churches. Mount Pisgah AME Zion Church was under the leadership of Honorable Bishop Benjamin Martin. He started the Zion Church, which eventually became Mount Pisgah. Second Baptist Church was founded and organized by Reverend C.R. Holmes on September 4th, 1922. St. Matthew Baptist Church was organized in 1939 in the home of Brother Baxter Watson, who was living on Childs Avenue in Merced at the time. And eventually they went to a building which was located on East Childs Avenue. The Apostolic Redemption Center Church, located at 378 East Childs in Merced, it burned down in August of 2006. And the pastor there was Pastor Anthony Anderson. First Church of Christ Holiness began as a dream as a dream in the hearts of Elisha and Ross Bass, Elder and Sister A.B. Smith, and others. Antioch Baptist Church, organized in September 1947 with 14 charter members, and they have more today, and it was in the Open Door Church. Greater New Hope Baptist Church, formerly known as New Hope Baptist Church, on May 11, 1952, had its origin beginning with Sunday school. Mount Zion Baptist Church, founded on March 10, 1950. New Faith Tabernacle Christian Church of Merced was organized in June 1968 by Elder and Missionary Earl P. Walker in Atwater. It was originally called Faith Tabernacle Church of God in Christ. Valley Harvest Church, a Southern Baptist African American church, founders and charter members Robert A. Morris, senior pastor, and Gloria J. Morris. They established the church on March 17, 2002. Mount Olive Missionary Baptist Church, organized in March 1930 under the leadership of Reverend K.P. Coleman. Bethany Church of God in Christ. In 1946, Elder and Sister J.D. Jeffrey moved from the Bay Area to Atwater, and they joined with the Cooksey family in prayer service in the home of George Wilson to start that church. Other Black churches in the Merced area listed in the book, Times of Refreshing Church of God in Christ, Friendship Missionary Baptist Church in Merced, and Merced Bethel Seventh-day Adventist Church. Those are the churches that were listed in the Black Gold book, and there are many continuing on today. And that is the strengthening faith of the Black churches, our foundation. Even in Merced, we did have community life. We had social activities going on when the Black Gold was published, as well as today. Just to name a few, we had social activities such as the Juneteenth celebration. Charlie Huddleston helped to organize local observance of the Juneteenth celebration of President Lincoln's freeing of the slaves during the Civil War. We also have the Black Merced Homecoming Reunion, and it was started in 1983 to bring families together during the Memorial Day weekend. We also had, maybe some of you remember this, the Lose It and Like It Club. Ola Windsor was part of that. Almetris Holston was part of that. We had the Miss Black Miss Black Merced. And you know, last summer we had a reunion of the Miss Black Merced ladies, and it was wonderful to see them on the virtual reunion and see what they're doing today. Many of them very accomplished. And in our business community, in case you didn't know, we had the Huddleston store. We had Burt Alexander's nightclub, Roy Brown's club, Bruce Huddleston's Market, Ernie Walker's Duke's Club, Joe James Bar, Herb Galloway's Auto Service, Slayton Trucking, Lim and Sam Adams Trucking and Hauling, Uncle Henry's Juke Joint, and many others. We had Charlie Huddleston's Knotty Pine Cafe. Those were some of the businesses that we had at that time. We even had the Merced Bakery, and that was with Selmore Green. He was a great baker. We also had, way back in 1950, a City League winning team, a women's softball team. So we had many social activities and clubs and businesses going on during this Black Gold publication. And we are continuing today with businesses that are going on in Merced in our African American community.
Yeah, when I came to Merced, I came in 1985. And one of the things that I found, all the businesses pretty much were gone. There was Mr. Hollingshed, who still had his store on the corner of J and now Martin Luther King Way and 13th. But I always remember if there was ever an event that was going to happen, there were three people that you called: Charlie Huddleston, Mary Bate, and Pearl Matkins. They got the job done. And that is just one of those stories. It's not a story, it's truth, fact, that they were sort of like the foundation of getting the work done in Merced County. So, you know, part of what I said I would share with Black Gold is education. 1970 is when they started desegregating schools here in Merced. And so in 6 schools, I'm looking at some of the programs that they had here. And I would encourage you to try to get a hold of this book, because if it's, I have an encyclopedia, 3 volumes of Black history. And this is one of the things that I would add to it, because it's just so rich with the story of Merced County. This is truly unique. But in talking about educators, everyone remembers Mr. D, Denard Davis, who rose to be our superintendent of schools. Principal Lillian Roberts, she was appointed to Merced City Schools. And even though it was, you know, still segregated, she was there. And she worked at Galen Clark. Now, there's a school that was named after Leontine Grace. Yes, elementary school in Merced, in honor of, she was a longtime educator. And then we had Billie Jean Brannon. She was a Black teacher in LeGrand. And the Ogletree Scholarship that was recently, how do I say, shared with the community. And if you don't remember Charles Ogletree, in 1970, I remember him telling me that he was actually the president of the of his high school graduating class. He went on to become, an author. And the book that he wrote, aside from his other accolades, the book was about Brown versus the Board of Education and All Deliberate Speed. And we had him come back here to Merced County for his book signing when he first released the book. And that was actually an awesome opportunity to have him here. He had been giving out scholarships for quite some time. You know, he, of course, graduated from Harvard. But, you know, the story is, you know, there was some people that didn't think he was ever going to make it out of here. But then there is that true faith that we have and the foundation that it was built upon. And he had a strong family, and he made it out of Merced and came back. He didn't forget where he came from. He came back on a regular basis and shared his knowledge and opportunity with the scholarships, with any kind of information that we needed. He supported the NAACP during that period of time. And just wonderful to have one of our own. And at UC Merced, he was the keynote speaker for UC Merced when they opened. And I'm skipping through stuff because I know
it's so much.
It is a lot, and it gets a little frustrating when you see like talking heads. And so I didn't want to do that. But moving on, I think you have the portion of just talking about the civic leaders.
Yes. There's so much in this Black Gold, so much good information. And I concur with Miss Allison that get you a copy of it. You will just be, in fact, I just enjoy it. And it's overwhelming a little bit, but it's a lot of information, good information that it's good for us to know. So we just wanted to share with you, and just the NAACP is a very important organization of which we are part of, and it has paved the path. The 30s and the 50s, the organization of the Merced chapter of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People in 1937 to the election of first African-American to Merced City Council in 1955. And that was Sarah Brown Porter, who was that individual. But these are the formative years of political activism, providing a solid foundation for future struggle in our African-American community. And I can read you this whole history, but our time is really getting away from us. But we had some wonderful NAACP leaders, and we're glad to say that one of our presidents, our past presidents, Michelle Allison, is on with us. And we're so glad that she's there, but we can give you the whole list of them. But get the book And we'll try to let you know how you can get this book so that you can have it in your library and be able to, go back and even share it with our young people who need to know about the African Americans in Merced community.
Right. And just before we close out, I would just like to just say the name of some of these folks that have been a huge part of what we do. But before that, when we went to change the name of the street to Martin Luther King Way back, and I had it and moved it. Not going to tell me the exact day here because I moved the page, but we
1993.
1993. Thank you. We did have to go in and go to the city council meetings and sign petitions and get people to sign petitions and just be that voice. But, I remember someone asking, and that was part of our question too, what does Martin Luther King mean to you? And certainly Dr. King was for everybody. His main cry was equality for all and in making life better. Just because our skin is darker doesn't mean that we have to be treated less than. And because your skin is lighter doesn't mean that you are better than. Opportunities certainly make this division in life. But anyway, one of the things that was asked of me during one of our marches was, do you think the legacy of Dr. King has been fully realized? And I said, no, it's not fully realized until we see MLK Way, MLK Drive, MLK Street on streets that go through all neighborhoods. And it's not just on the south side or the poor sides of your communities. It goes all the way through.
Right.
And that's just a reckoning of who he was. He was for all people, but for so many reasons, we are still with it on the shortest street, wherever your community is, okay? And I'm serious, I did a read one time and they had one place where it was just one block. So change will happen when we can see things like that going all the way through. But just really, a Woman of the Year in 2003, Darlene Mitchell Penn. I know some of you remember her, know her. Superior Court Judge, Angel Morris Jones, and Stefan Gray, who we have a portion of 99 named after, who is a police officer here in Merced County. And of course, our Sam Huddleston. And the first African-American firefighter was James Willie Walker for the city of Merced, and he was from Merced, and he started in the fire department in 1970 at age 25. So Baraka, that should be sort of a welcoming to you to know that, yes, you are one of a now legacy. And then Alphonse Al Peterson was, when he served in the military, is a lieutenant colonel, and he still lives here in Merced County. And we just lost our Charlie Huddleston, Uncle Charlie, not too long ago. And Mayor Albert Smith, African-American officer. Julia Beal, she was one of the first presidents of the NAACP. Bishop Dwight Aney was the spearhead in changing MLK Way. Nicola Adams, businesswoman. Grace Booth, a member of the community and the arts community. Lou Braxton, past president of the NAACP. Denard Davis, as I spoke of before. Judy Evans, businesswoman. Ida Johnson, educator and phenomenal woman for our community. And Sylvia Fuller, another phenomenal woman, still with us, and yes, a former teacher now of the school. You told me the school was, it's not?
John Muir.
Muir.
John Muir Elementary. She was the first Black elementary school principal here in Merced.
And
I was the first Black secretary.
Yeah.
In Merced City School District, yes.
Right. Wow. And the Fullers, were, what do you call it? A dynamic duo.
Yes.
He had retired from the military, and he was also a past president of the NAACP. And then, of course, Pastor Robert Morris was the EEO Officer Diversity Director for Merced County, replacing Bill Tolliver, right? Jamal Kelly, a lot of people don't know, silver medalist, was from here in Merced. He doesn't live here now. I think he lives in Nevada, but he was from here. And then Dr. Larry Johnson, who is a principal at Atwater High School and went on to be the vice principal at Merced College. And you know what's nice? One of the VP slots there now is being held by a gentleman by the name of Joe Allison. It's one of his students. That's pretty cool.
Wonderful young man.
Yes, Torrin Johnson, another name we should have there. Kenneth Roberts, police officer. Tony Slayton, born in Merced, went on to play Major League Football and is back. Demetrius Tatum, D. Tatum, was our CEO for the county of Merced. Yeah. And Miss Sunny White, who took the concept of Girl Scouts and turned a program into Girls of Color, which was really wonderful. So these are some of the, and Tina Williams, oh my gosh, if I forgot, Tina did so much in this community and still does. And we are just really happy to have had the opportunity to share some of the names and the people. Black Gold. See Sarah Lynn over at the Merced County Historical Society. If you'd like to get a copy, thank you for allowing us to share some of the wonderful information that is found here in this book. That is so much the story of Merced County. And Joyce, I didn't know that was your dad, but what a pleasure to have had the opportunity to read that and share and shock you. Bless you.
You read it so well too. Thank you so much. Yeah.
So it was a good thing that we just kept it with me. Praise God. Thank you.
Hope you learned something on that. Get the book.
Thank you. Hey, clap it up. Hey, that's wonderful. The reason why I think that's very relevant is because a lot of times we celebrate our Martin Luther Kings and our Malcolm X's and not really celebrating our local Martin Luther Kings and Malcolm X's, because they go through the same thing as far as fighting for our freedoms and fighting for what is right and putting themselves out there. If anybody should know, putting yourself out there is hard, but only a select few is able to do it. But once again, we needed those leaders, because without, Napoleon Washington and without the Daryl Davises, and which were two of my mentors, there wouldn't be any Allen Brooks. So I appreciate everybody once again. That's local Black history. The Black and Gold book is available. I did see it in the notes. Also, I do want to let people know that the NAACP is the oldest, most powerful civil rights organization in America. Formed in 1909, it was formed by white and Black people. The NAACP is for everybody, in every color, every creed. Once again, if you feel like your civil rights have been infringed upon, or if you feel like that somebody's done you wrong, once again, feel free to come to us, file out a complaint. We are freedom fighters. And once again, we fight for everything: education, economics, brutality at all sorts. And we do have, once again, leaders that we can call upon to assist us in helping and fighting these fights and fighting these policies and procedures. So once again, thank you. Let's clap it up one more time for that local history. I love to hear it. It's always a good thing to have local history. Next, we have a poem by Joyce Dale. It's called Imagine. A poem by Joyce Dale. It's called Imagine. Somebody rang your doorbell. All right, if we don't have that queued up, we'll move forward. We'll go ahead, and then we do have some wonderful messages from our Assemblyman Adam Gray and also our mayor. So let's introduce Assemblyman Adam Gray. Do we have that video ready? No, so do we have any videos ready? Oh, thank you.
Good morning. Let me begin by saying I wish more than anything that I could be with you in person to celebrate the legacy of Dr. King. But because we're all doing our part to be responsible and slow the spread of COVID-19, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to be together in person. Our nation's civil rights struggle began long ago and is far from over. For many, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s service and sacrifice are a high point in this movement. But he would be the first to remind us that he was but one part of a larger movement. It was Dr. King that said, by the thousands, faceless, anonymous, relentless young people, black and white, have taken our whole nation back to those great wells of democracy, which were dug deep by the founding fathers in the formulation of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. On this day, when we honor and remember his deeds, we also recognize the many thousands of good people who laid the groundwork of this cause, as well as those who carry on that noble endeavor today, including you. It includes the local leaders who came before us, close friends and personal heroes of mine and yours, people such as Dwight Amy, Denard Davis, Charlie Huddleston, Lou Braxton, and Jim Fuller. The movement belongs to all of us, and with that honorable charge comes the daily responsibility to be vigilant, consistent, determined, and committed to fighting inequality and speaking out for justice, nationally and here in our own community. With that, please make the most of this day, a day of recognition and contemplation. I look forward to seeing you again on the front lines of the fight for equality, and thank you for including me in today's event.
Thank you, Adam Gray, Assemblyman. I appreciate that message. Now we have our mayor, Matt Serrano, with the message.
You know, while we're waiting, one of the leaders that we didn't talk about, past presidents, Loretta Smith, who is sometimes an army unto herself. And least we not recognize her for her diligent work and recognition within this community. The one thing this book also has is the list of all of the past presidents of the NAACP and the timelines that they served. So, you know, I'm only talking because while she's getting that queued up, because you guys don't want to sit and just stare at the empty screen, right?
Sit and look at each other. Okay, so.
We look great. We look great.
Now, I can try to give it, if you wanted me to, I can give it live if you wanted.
Let's give it live. Let's do it.
No, it's not going to be any good. It took me like 30 takes to get it right last night.
Man, look, live is always better. Live is always better.
Well, again, happy Martin Luther King Day. Good afternoon, everybody. You know, as we've seen today, as everyone's done today, I think, you know, there's a couple things that we do on this day. First and foremost is to honor the life and legacy of Dr. King himself and to honor him, being a man who in just 39 years on this earth became one of the most consequential, monumental figures in American history and left such a legacy. Second, you know, as we read earlier, it's a National Day of Service. I think that's important to note. It's the only federal holiday designated as such, the National Day of Service, decreed by Congress in 1994. So, you know, important to give back. I'm gonna try to run out later on and do a couple little things myself. So I think it's important to do, and it's important to kind of build that call. Third, you know, as we've seen at length today as well too, it's an opportunity to honor Black America. And here, you know, with the book that was mentioned, you know, to honor the achievements, the culture, the contributions of African Americans, and you know, really to give thanks and appreciation for the positive impact that people have made on this country and how African Americans have enriched the fabric of the United States in so many ways. You know, in many ways, they're underappreciated in the impact that they've had on the United States. And, fourth, and again, most importantly as well, is just to, to ponder one of the biggest, if not the biggest topics throughout American history, and that's race in America. Not just study and think about the unique historical moment that Dr. King occupied in the civil rights movement of the late 1950s and the 60s, but, think about where we're at today. And obviously, as Alan referenced early on, there's still a lot of work to do. And what we can do, everybody, as individuals and also as a nation, to bring people together instead of dividing them, to build people up and uplift everybody instead of tearing them down. I think it's important work that we all need to continue working on. So that was kind of the gist of what I wanted to portray today. And I think you've all been doing the same thing for the last hour. So appreciate all of them.
Thank you. Hey, that was beautiful, man. That was great off the cuff. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fired me well.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for being here. Hey, this is our first time doing this. So as far as this format, we will get it together, I guarantee you, and we will make it smoother and more promising. So just like our town halls, technology is something. So we'll get it together. So, but I appreciate everybody being here at the MLK virtual celebration. We are going to move on. We have a beautiful song, I Know Where I've Been, by one of our most talented vocalists, Michelle Allison.
It's a video, I'm not singing it. There it is. The song is I Know Where I've Been, sung by Queen Latifah from the movie Hairspray. The kids are protesting in the civil rights movement because black and white, they won't let them dance together. So here we are. There's a light in the darkness, though the night is black as my skin. There's a light burning bright, showing me the way. But I know where I've been. There's a cry in the distance. It's a voice that comes from deep within. There's a cry asking why. I pray the answer's up ahead, 'cause I know where I've been. There's a road we must travel, lost so many on the way, but the riches will be plenty, worth the price we had to pay. There's a dream in the future. There's a struggle that we have yet to win. And there's pride in my heart, 'cause I know where I'm going, and I know where I've been. There is a road we must travel. There is a promise that we must make. But the riches, oh, there'll be plenty, worth the risk and the chances that we take.
a struggle. Oh, we have yet to win. And there's pride in my heart to lift us up till tomorrow. 'Cause just to sit still would be a sin. Thank you.
All right. Woo!
That was beautiful. You know what?
Wonderful,
Next
wonderful.
program, we're gonna do 2 minutes of just introduction and 2 hours of Mrs. Allison. That was beautiful. Clap it up. Oh my goodness. That was great. We need look. All right. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Good. One more time. That gave me chills. Good job. Good job. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Let's move on. I'm like, man, an hour of that. Anyways, so during the Civil Rights Movement and many other eras, all the time, whether we're talking about education, whether we're talking about economics, the blacks and browns have always been fighting side to side. Side by side. A lot of times they like to say that we're separate, but we've never been separate. From the beginning of time, once again, we've always stood side by side, and we've always been at the fight with each other. The Black Parallel School Board goes to the school and puts out information that talks about not just blacks, but blacks, browns. It talks about everybody. A lot of times when you help the lower group, it helps everybody. Sometimes when, a lot of times people are scared to say the word black, or we want to help black this, or we want to help black that. The reason why it's like that is because if you help, once again, the lowest group, it excels everybody. Everybody benefits from the work that we do. Everybody benefits from the work that we do in the school system and economics. So once again, even though we might say we're fighting for blacks, but we're fighting for everybody. And once again, from the beginning of time, blacks and browns have always stood together. And we understand the ideology, if that blacks and browns come together, we're considered a super majority because we're not a minority anymore. So I just wanted to kind of put together this piece that has to do with blacks and browns, and just, talk about during blacks and browns during the Civil Rights Movement. So we all can get an understanding that we're brothers and sisters. We just, a little bit different shades, but we still got the same blood pumping through us. Blacks, browns, whites, and all, everybody. So blacks and browns during the Civil Rights Movement.
Today, we see Hispanic Americans continuously gaining and having more rights than they did back during the Civil Rights Movement. There is no denying the influence that Latinos have as a voting bloc and how much more political power they have now than they did during the Civil Rights era. Hispanic Americans are now awarded equal pay as Caucasians and Hispanic children are able to get through their schooling with their graduation rate, having been raised 60% since the 1960s. During the Civil Rights Movement, Hispanic Americans struggled to gain rights. Through their struggle, they have earned more equal treatment in society, though there are still challenges Hispanic Americans face and are fighting to overcome. After a mass immigration towards the end of the 19th century, many Hispanics found themselves seen as unwanted foreigners in the newly annexed territories in the U.S. A treaty between Mexico and the U.S. was to guarantee Hispanic Americans equality and the retention of their property. By the beginning of the 1960s, almost all of their land had been seized by their new host nation. Hispanic Americans were then referred to as a second class and lost all of their social, political, and economic power. When the issue of human and property rights arose, so did the Chicano Movement. The Chicano Movement, or El Movimiento, was a cultural and political movement that raised awareness of the history of Mexicans and or Chicanos in North America. The goal of the Chicano movement was primarily to gain back the ancestral lands of Hispanic Americans. They also fought to terminate segregation and promote equality. They demanded equal treatment in the fields where they labored, and they fought for political power because it was obvious that without it, they would remain second-class citizens. The Chicano movement was a constant struggle for justice. The treatment of Chicanos in the U.S. was similar to that of African Americans, though it wasn't to the same extent. Shortly after Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954, the Supreme Court ruled that Hispanics had equal rights and protection under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution in Hernandez versus Texas. This victory provided a legal avenue for Hispanic Americans to combat discrimination in many areas. They became an identifiable minority group, and it allowed them to resist and prohibit segregation more easily.
Cesar Chavez was one of the most notable and important leaders in the Chicano movement. Chavez was born March 31st, 1927 in Yuma, Arizona. He grew up in Arizona and learned about injustice at a very young age. When Chavez's father's land was seized, though he was young, he never forgot the injustice of this crime. In 1938, Chavez moved to California with his family and settled in San Jose. Chavez and his family worked in the fields, and as a child, he did not enjoy school because of the language barrier and segregation. He was only allowed to speak Spanish at home. He and his brother attended 37 schools during their childhood, and in 1942, he graduated from the 8th grade. At the age of 19, he joined the U.S. Navy and served for 2 years, which then was also extremely segregated during the time. In 1948, Chavez married Elena Fabela, and he showed her his great interest in education. They settled in Delano and began to make a family. Later, Chavez returned to San Jose and met Father Donald McDonald, who influenced him greatly and helped him learn his methods about gaining rights for farmers. Chavez then began the Community Service Program, which later led him to the National Farm Workers Association.
For more than 100 years, farm workers had been denied a decent life out on the fields and received very little pay. In 1962, Cesar Chavez founded the National Farm Workers Association. This organization sought to organize farm workers and become an effective union. They later changed their name to United Farm Workers, or UFW, when Chavez was joined by Dolores Huerta. For some time, when this association first existed, there were only a few union due-paying members until 1970, when the UFW persuaded grape growers to accept their union contracts. Chavez made sure the organization was nonviolent and peaceful. The farm workers went on strike in 1966.
They walked 340 miles from Delano to Sacramento to further their nonviolent ways. This was called the Delano Grape Strike, and its intention was to convince the government to pass laws which would allow farmers to organize unions and let them have collective bargaining agreements. Cesar Chavez brought public support to the Chicano movement through the Delano Grape Strike. The strike brought national attention to the plight of some of the lowest paid workers in the country. Chavez also proved through fasting several times that violence never had to be used. Chavez led the first successful organization of farm workers in U.S. history.
The Mexican American community had the highest high school dropout rate and lowest college attendance among any ethnic group during this time period. The oppressive conditions coupled with the hostile learning environment led to the Chicano student movement. In Los Angeles, public schools were paid based on the number of students they had in each class. This made it possible for students to target schools financially by walking out before attendance was taken. In 1968, Los Angeles Latino high school students walked out of their classroom to protest unequal treatment in schools. 3 weeks later, the school board bowed to the students' demands.
Though change was not always immediately apparent in high schools, change was obtained through the Chicanos' perseverance. These walkouts also unified and empowered the Hispanic American community. The next achievement for Chicanos in education was in 1974, when Congress passed the Equal Educational Opportunity Act of 1974. The act prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin, and called for school districts to take action on language barriers and impeded education, making bilingual education more widely available in public schools. As made evident, Hispanic Americans have come a very long way. They have accomplished their four main goals: restoral of land, rights for farm workers, education reforms, and giving Latinos political power. Considering that Hispanic Americans were receiving similar treatment and injustice as the African Americans during the Civil Rights Movement, African Americans' struggle for equality greatly influenced Hispanic Americans to take charge and make a change. Previous to the movement, Hispanic Americans were made submissive to the discrimination against their race. However, as African Americans made a profound impact on segregation, this inspired Latino activists to do the same. Today, Hispanics are the largest racial minority in the U.S., and their influence highly impacts our social, political, and economic system. Hispanics now have more power and equality than they have ever before. Though Latinos have come a long way, they still have a great deal to overcome before equality will be reached.
Latinos' constant pursuit of fairness and the American identity through the Civil Rights Movement earned them the rights they have today.
Thank you. And I thought that was very important to show, because once again, as we've, from the beginning of time, we've been fighting next to each other, side by side. And that's one of the main things Dr. King's speech was about, and what his ideology was about, that everybody, regardless of race, color, creed, skin color, is treated equally. So I wanted to make sure that's important. At this time, do we have the poem, I Have a Dream History by Joyce Dale? All right, if we can't get the video or play, once again, our apologies. Technology, we're all slaves to it, and especially in the Zoom era. At this time, actually, we want to open up the floor to, this is the interactive part. Basically, our question to you is, what does MLK mean to you? And in one words, or or in a minute or a minute or two, please let us know. Just all you have to do is raise your hand and the administrators will allow you to speak or let you in. Let us know how MLK affects you, or what do you think about MLK, or how are you feeling today about MLK?
Alan, if you don't mind, I really would like to go ahead and do Imagine. I have it right here in front of me. I wrote it for today. If I could share that, if you don't mind.
Of course I don't. Hey, she'll just do it live. So
I'll do it live.
Yeah, let's do it live. Wonderful. So let's go ahead and once again get a poem by Joyce Dill, and it's called Imagine. She's doing it live.
Imagine. Martin Luther King Jr. was a man with a dream. He was a man with a vision from God. It stretched further than his eyes could see. I can imagine his decision was hard. I can imagine the decision was hard when the only weapon he had was prayer. He could have said, "No, Lord, I won't go. Nobody really cares. We all know Black lives don't matter. Look at how we're treated. Lord, why are you sending me to fight a battle where I'll be defeated?" He may have said, "Lord, before I move, give me the strength to fight against a nation of power and hatred who believe I have no rights. Help me, Lord, to lead my people and others to fight and stand nonviolently, prayerfully for civil rights of women and men." Oh, sorry. Wait a minute, I'm so sorry, y'all, lost myself. Okay, for civil rights of women and men who fought their way to freedom for a future that was much brighter. Help me, Lord, to peacefully train someone to be a freedom fighter. I pray, God, that as I step out on my faith, and in Jesus' name, you will prepare an army to join me in this fight that's insane. I know this battle is essential, Lord. I know it's going to cost my life. Lord, give the strength to carry on to my children and my wife. Help this nation rise up. Help this nation rise up. Let the message be loud and clear that you gave me to give them before I get out of here. Let freedom ring one day, Lord. Let the fight that I have not been in vain, as your will prevails and not my will, in Jesus' holy name.
Thank you, Miss Joyce. Appreciate it. Let's clap it up for Miss Joyce.
Thank you, y'all. Technical difficulties everywhere. Thank you.
Yeah, being able to do that live, I appreciate it. Mrs. Riley, are you going to share the video? If not, then we will move on to the interactive part. Are we sharing any more videos before we move on to interactive?
Yes, I'm doing it right now.
In a little tent, and like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh yes it is. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. But I don't know what lies up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh yes it is. I go to the movies, then I go downtown. But somebody keep telling me, little sister, don't hang around. It's been a long change gonna come. Oh, yes, it is. So I go to my brother. I say, brother, brother, won't you help me, please? Oh. But he just keeps on knocking me back down on my knees. There were times when I thought I couldn't last for long, but now I know in 2021 I gotta keep carrying on. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it is.
Good job. Thank you. I'm glad we got that. That was a beautiful, beautiful song. All right, with further ado, we are going to go ahead and open it up for the interactive portion. So once again, please let us know, what MLK Day means to you, what Martin Luther King means to you, any experiences. This is interactive, so hey, please don't be shy. Just let us know how you're feeling. Everybody is welcome, so just let us know. For me personally, I think this is a very important day, especially with what's the climate of America. It's always been important to me, but with the climate of America, once again, being silent is being part of the problem. So I'm ecstatic. I'm excited. We are trying this new platform. We will get better at it, but I'm just glad that I'm here, being able to be president of the NAACP, being able to be Merced, being able to be Black, and being able to be free. So a lot of people older than me have paved the way for me to be able to freely speak my mind, and I really, really, from the depths of my soul, really appreciate what the blood, sweat, and tears that they put in for me. So thank you to all my elders, to everybody that's done anything that promotes the agility of Black, and thank you for allowing me to be who I am today. Please, anybody else, feel free to share.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you very much. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I know it's kind of dark over here where I'm at. I got to get some new lighting. But my name is Josh Pedroso. I've met many of you before and talked to a lot of you in the past. But this is something that this is a day that I always take very seriously. And I always, as a teacher, or when I was a teacher, I used to play this, the I Have a Dream speech. And I always ask my students, have we achieved that yet? What Dr. Martin Luther King is talking about? Have we gotten there? And the resounding answer was no. I said, and being the devil's advocate, I said, well, Barack Obama was our president, so we're there, right? And they're like, no, that's not the case. We still have more to do. And that's what I wanted to hear. During this summer and all of these protests that are going on, I had my son, who's going to be 10 in May, watch a lot of these protests go on, specifically the George Floyd protest. And I said, you need to watch this. And he said, well, why? Why are they doing that to that man? I said, because he's not the same color as you and I. And I said, and he said, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work that way. And so for him to understand and recognize that, I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the work that you guys do to put out, and then to highlight the diversity. I mean, putting out the Hispanic stuff, that video was awesome. I mean, that was really cool. But to me, MLK means hope, means determination. It means focus. It means service above self. And I'll end with this. I'll never forget this. I was at the Capitol in Washington, D.C., and John Lewis was walking by. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's John Lewis. And so I walked up to him and I introduced myself to him, and I was on the city council at the time, and he goes, oh, well, thank you for your service to the community. And I'm like, thank me? You got, like, don't thank me, thank you, like, for what you did. Like that was the coolest thing. One of the coolest experiences, and I kick myself to this day for not getting the picture. But I really appreciate everything that you guys do, and everything that, and I wish that we could be in person and doing this. This is one of my favorite events of the year. But I really do appreciate the highlighting of the different diversities and just keeping people aware of what's going on. So thank you very much. And I hope you guys have a great day and enjoy the day. So, thank you.
Thank you, Josh, our board of supervisors. I appreciate you. I know, you know, we together have some work to do, but who better than us? So once again, thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your commitment to our community, because once again, together we can make a difference in Merced.
And that's what it's all about. It's about being together, and that's the way I work. And so I can't wait to get stuff done. So.
And I got that on tape, so thank you, Josh. No, I'm just messing. Anybody next?
Alan, I have people, if I push the button to ask you to unmute, then you're next. So the next person I have was Norma.
Thank you, Norma. Please share.
And if not, then Al Rodgers.
Hi, everybody. I'm Norma Cardona. I'm a downtown resident. Thank you. Hi, Helen. Hi, everybody else. Thank you so much for putting this event on. This event together for the community. We really appreciate it. I'm a downtown resident, and what MLK Day means to me is service above self. I think it's one of the things that Josh mentioned, and that speaks a lot to me and my heart and the person that I am. And so service means, you know, fighting for each other. It means fighting for community and fighting for your neighbor and making yourself uncomfortable, you know, pushing past the comfort zone so that you're fighting for others. And so on this MLK Day, thank you. And to me, it means service.
Thank you, Norma. I appreciate it. And I like the word service, because I know you do service yourself. So if anybody is able to heed to that word, it's definitely you. So thank you. I appreciate that. Who do we have next, Rhonda?
Al Rodgers.
Dr. Al Rodgers, thank you for being here. Please share.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I have to tell you, it is such a pleasure and an honor to be with you. You know, the question is, what does this day mean to us? And I have to say, it means everything to me. I'm part of this community, and I owe everything that I have been able to experience in terms of success to my teachers and to the community members around me. And I really have learned that none of us succeeds alone. That it is about working with your teachers, working with your neighbors, contributing what you can, and being blessed to receive the guidance and the wisdom of your elders and those around you. And so I have been blessed to be part of Merced and to assume a role of leadership in the schools. But I recognize that these are our schools together, and that it takes all of us working together, absolutely living the legacy and the message of Dr. King, and all of you are doing it. And so for me, this day is about gratitude and humility, and the sense of connection to all of my neighbors and my elders around me, and the youth, of course, that we serve. So thank you very much for this day, and all of you for engaging.
Thank you, Dr. Rodgers, the superintendent of Merced City Schools. So I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate you chiming in. And once again, you are a leader and in a position to make some of those changes that we're looking for to promote equity for all. So thank you for being here, and thank you for speaking. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Rhonda, who do we have next?
We have Priya and then Hannah.
Priya.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This was a beautiful event. In spite of a few technological issues, that the song at the end was, I think, just what we all needed. It was beautiful, it was breathtaking, and I am so glad I participated today. For me, this day means that there's still fight. We all need to fight for better schools, for better housing, for better nutrition, for better everything. Or, you know, I look at Merced and I see the potential, and I hope to participate more in events. And for me, it's just a reminder to constantly that we need to come together to make things better for our community instead of always like blaming the other side. So I just want to work with all of you and Merced to make our schools better. I think, you know, K through 12 education is very meaningful and important to me. So I will continue to advocate for resources for not just schools in North Merced, but all of Merced. So it's a constant reminder for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Priya Laccaretti. I really appreciate that. We know that there's some important things happening at the school board as far as opening positions. So we definitely need to have a community forum about that and just about education. And trust me, we are going to tackle education because once again, for too long, the system has failed us, and it has to be the system because, you know, we've implemented different people over the years and with the same results. I always say, you know, Black and brown students are at the bottom. If you take away the prefix, if you take away the verb Black and brown, they're still Merced students. So, and it's still a product of Merced. So we have to do better and trust. That is one of the main things that the NAACP, along with the Black Parallel School Board and Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and everybody else, will tackle that. And we're going to tackle that as a whole. Once again, we promote everybody. Everybody has to come along for the ride. And that's the only way we're going to make change if everybody is involved. So thank you. Can anybody else, Rhonda, who do we have?
Hannah and then Keith.
Hannah.
Okay, good afternoon, and what a beautiful program. I really enjoyed it. My name's Hannah Nian, and I am one of your board persons on the Merced NAACP. You know, in listening to the legacy that was read during the Black and Gold presentation, it was very heartwarming and fulfilling, and it really lends into my word for today, and it is reflection. You know, we need to reflect on where we were, where we are trying to go, and what we are doing. And, you know, it takes commitment, not just from an organization, but from the individuals, the community, the churches, the parents, the extended families, to each give a little bit. And by everyone doing just a little bit, it makes a whole lot happen, because no one person, no one organization has all the wherewithal to make the big movement. And so once you get that momentum going and the enthusiasm within yourself, enthusiasm is contagious. And, you know, you ask yourself, how many people stand in line to be with the losers? Not very many. But if they see something happening and something looking good, they're going to want to be a part of it. And you really don't have to say much, but you are speaking through your actions, not so much through your words and through flyers and publicity. So just as, you know, we had some technological glitches with today's program, it was still most enjoyable. And I think the message definitely went through, but it was a good lesson, not just to our students well, we're all students, whether we're senior citizens or 1-year-old. You don't give up because something goes wrong. You take a moment, you breathe, you figure out, hey, what happened there? Oopsie, oh my. Well, let's do this and see if it works. If it works, that's the one you're going to do again. But that which did not work, it's okay. So again, thank you all for all that you're doing. And it's been a very fulfilling day for me.
Thank you, Hannah. I appreciate those kind words. And just to piggyback off what you said, this is our first time presenting this platform. I guarantee you, we will not have the same problems that we had today. If not, then we're not learning from our problems or from mistakes. But thank you, Keith, my brother from another mother. Go ahead. Did we have you?
Mr. Brooks, thank you for giving me a couple seconds. I hope everybody can hear me okay. It's love to me, man. It's that unconditional love, no matter what. Being a parent, being able to show that to my daughter, that it's equal back and forth no matter what, is what's important to me. So I just want to take my 2 seconds, pass the love along, no matter what. It's all good. And I just want to show that to my daughter, make sure that it kind of conveys to her and she keeps carrying that message along. That was it for me. I just want to say that piece.
Thank you, Mr. Dennis. I really appreciate it. And once again, that's my brother from another mother, one of my best friends. I can, if I'm in trouble, I can call on him. So thank you, Keith. I appreciate you being here, sir.
Nothing but love.
I know, all the time. Who else do we have, Rhonda?
We have Miss, I hope I'm not butchering it, Elaine?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, for me, hello, everybody. And to all the dignitaries that were on earlier, thank you so much for your participation. It really means a lot to see that our city council, our senators are really involved in the work that we're doing and that there's a real commitment. That means a lot to me. When I look back at the demographics of America through American history and see how America was, and because of Dr. Martin Luther King, how America is today, it's not perfect, but we are striving for something so beautiful that we can pass on to our children and our grandchildren. I really do think as an America, we will get there. We will actually see the dream and everyone will live the dream. And those who are on the fringes, who still don't want to see the blend and the beauty of the diversity come together, they're going to become the very, very small minority. But everyone else who's moving forward in this dream, which is becoming a reality, is going to see a beautiful world. America's a leading nation. American ideals are leading ideals for many nations under oppression. And I think we're doing an excellent job. So for me, Dr. Martin Luther King's life and the whole fact that we continue to celebrate it and to bring it to the world means hope. And I want to thank everybody for putting this on, such a powerful event. Even though there were some difficulties, it was beautiful. And I'm very glad to be a part of today's celebration. Thank you.
Thank you. And you make me smile with your smile. So you have an infectious smile. So thank you for sharing that with us. Everybody smile. I'm looking at everybody. You made everybody smile. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. And we wanted to make sure that it was local. We could have just, we could have done a bunch of Martin Luther King speeches in a row, but you can do that on your own time as far as look some of these speeches up and listen to them. I suggest you do. But we just wanted to make it local, interactive, and kind of educational as far as, letting you know things about what's going on in your town and what's going on in your area and just things like that. So once again, thank everybody for being here. Rhonda, do we have somebody else?
I do not see any other hands.
All right. If not, I'm gonna throw a shout out to Colton Dennis. I'm gonna throw a shout out to Mrs. Washington. I'm gonna throw a shout out to definitely Pam and Charlie Bennett, some of my mentors. Definitely Mrs. White. Everybody on. Once again, thank you for being here. Pamela Simmons. Everybody, thank you once again for being here, taking out the time to enjoy our presentation. Once again, it was our first time, but we will get it together. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to say before we go on?
I think you have.
We have one more.
One more
Yes,
person.
sir.
My granddaughter want to say something, but she's shy.
Now you, girl, don't be shy. You're wrong. This family, girl, you can say whatever you want to.
Okay, we have Renee that also had his hand up.
Okay.
Go ahead. Hey, go ahead.
Okay.
Come on, come on, Generation Riley. What you got? What you want to say?
We need a young man.
Hold on. There we go.
Everybody.
Hi.
I see a lot of familiar faces, but for those who don't know me, this is my grandma, and I'm currently a student, a sophomore at Merced Junior College, and I'm actually majoring in criminal justice. And in school, people would just like take Martin Luther King Jr. Day as like a joke, or like think of it as like a 3-day holiday. But to me, I appreciate it because it gives me the right to go to school and gives me the opportunity to grow and succeed.
That's true. Thank you. Thank you. And based on history and the work that our past people have done, we're able to go to school freely. We can walk in those doors and we don't have armed men outside that's trying to deter us. So a lot of people have done a lot of things to allow us to do what we are able to do. And that's one of the things that we're giving thanks for today. Just all the blood, sweat, and tears, all the lives that were lost. A lot of people lost their lives for us to have the ability to walk into schools and to walk into our jobs and to just walk freely around America. Even though things are bad as far as what's going on in America along the police, but it has gotten better, and it is getting better and better slowly but surely. So we will get to the promised land, and we will get to our goal. It just takes some time, and it just takes people like us to continue to fight and do the things that we do. Renee.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you. Great program. Job well done, Merced NAACP. Just quickly, what MLK stands for me. And actually, as we scroll through our social media feeds today, you'll see hundreds, if not thousands, of quotes from the doctor, actually Martin Luther King. And one of them that like sticks to me on and off is, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. So hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. So even now that I'm in my mid-30s, I often think about this quote, especially with everything that's been going on lately. So MLK Day for me is about honoring someone who had the courage to stand up for what is right, being fully aware of how dangerous it could be. And it's about honoring someone who taught us that we can only achieve unity and peace by acting with compassion for our fellow men, especially here, like in our local community of Merced. So that's what MLK Day for me means. So again, thank you for putting on this event. It's awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank everybody for being here. Once again, it's needed, and it's been a great day. Do we have anybody else?
Can you hear me, Alan?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Okay. Now, I'm sorry that I was not able to put my hand up. I'm a little late as usual. But one of the things that I want people to understand, all the words was great. They're great words we heard from participants, we heard from our politicians, heard from a lot of people. But one of the things I wanted to think about is this. If Dr. King was alive, what do you think he would say to us today? If he had to look back 60 years from the time he came back in the 60s, and I was one of those individuals that was down there in Mississippi when these things was happening. I remember all these things, the 3 girls that got bombed in that church down in Alabama. Well, my older brothers was down there also. So as I said, again, what do you think he would say if he looked back from the time when he was going through the civil rights movement to the time we got today? What do you think? And this is just a historical question. You don't have to answer it. Take it home with you. Do anything you want to do with it. But what do you think he would say? Thank you very much.
Mr. Ben, you can't just ask that question and leave us. I need some. I need to hear what people got to say now.
No, I think it's a question that we all need to answer within ourselves. I don't think it's one answer, but based on what we're saying today and what he stood for, because his whole being was about freedom and freedom for all. Mm-hmm. Okay. But if we look at what has happened today, from the time that man was assassinated to the time that I'm speaking to you right now, which is live, within yourself, you don't have to have an answer. You don't have to speak to anyone about anything. But if you in this type of fight, it's not about showcasing. It's about what are you doing? That's all of us here today. What are you doing that makes the difference? Again, I said this, think about what he would say today. Has there been those kind of changes that he was talking about? Or are we at the same place? You've got to think about that. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, have a beautiful day. I enjoyed each one of you.
Wow.
Happy New Year to you all. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. That was a deep question. And in my research, I always like to get empirical data directly from the people instead of reading out the books. And I talked to a lot of elders and in my life just to figure out what was going on. I can only speak from my time, and from my time. Today, I have seen that it's gotten a little bit better. From me being a teenager and going outside to today, it has gotten a little bit better, but in a sense, we're in the same place. In a sense, if you think about it, in a sense, if you're not producing productive citizens in society, and we know education does that. I mean, the main thing that Dr. King talked about was equity and justice and equal rights and equal. But if you look at it, nothing is equal. If you look at it, we're still fighting that same fight to be equal. If you look at it, the color of our skin makes us unequal. That was a pretty deep question because, if you think about it in a whole, some people would say it has gotten better because, hey, I'm able to go to college. Once again, I can go through the school doors without people being, with shotguns. The possibility of me being lynched is still there, but it has went down. But what has really changed? They're still not educating our people. They still have systems set in place so our people do go to jail, so our people don't succeed. So. Somebody else chime in, please.
I think it's a question that people need to think about, and that's okay. You don't have to have an answer. Just think it's a question that people need to think about. And if you think about it and look at it, then maybe you can come up with a solution for yourself. That's all it is. But again, thank you. Happy New Year, belated New Year to everybody. Just something that I think that needed to be said, and it's just the reality out here. It's not. It's a different kind of world, and it's the same world.
It is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that food of thought. Hey, it is 2:15. Time flies when you're having fun. But feel free to sign out. We are going to run I have a dream speech to go out. Just to finish us off. I'm sorry we went over time, but it was a good presentation, and the interactive part, kind of gets everybody. So thanks again, and we'll close out with the I Have a Dream speech. Thank everybody for showing up, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
I have the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. I am happy to join with you today
in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, and every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, my country, tears of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, Let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring in Whitney Capital. When we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Well, that's the end of our program. Thank you all very much for attending. It was great seeing you all, and we'll see you at our next meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
February
So good seeing you.
26th.
Happy Martin Luther King Day.
Yes. Bye.
Have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Bye, all.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye, everyone.